Hello HBA friends. I'm on Route 66, another road again today, but only this time I'm in Miami, Oklahoma, and I'm standing here in front of the historic Coleman Theater. We're going to go inside and look around at this beautiful place in just a few minutes. By the way, I didn't tell you where our installation was going to be next year. Prior to 1907, when Oklahoma became a state, there were scores of towns in Oklahoma. Our installation this year is going to be in one of those historic towns, and I'll tell you where later, so watch for the videos and you'll see. Here we are inside the beautiful historic Coleman Theater. But before I tell you a little bit about it, I want to introduce you to Shannon Duhon. He's the executive director of the Coleman Theater. Shannon, how are you today?
I'm great. So happy to have you here today.
Well, we're glad to be here, and thank you for letting us do this.
You're most welcome.
So, back in the late 1800s, two brothers from Colorado moved here to Oklahoma to dig oil wells for all the new incoming settlers. George Coleman was one of those brothers, and they dug oil wells for quite a number of years. They dug water wells for quite a number of years. In about 1905, they didn't hit water. They found something else. We'll get to that in a minute. The brothers actually struck it rich. They made a fortune. And over the years, George got interested in motion pictures at the time, and he got interested in Hollywood. So he met a lot of the people of the day in Hollywood, and back in that day, they had what was called the vaudeville circus. They toured the eastern coast, which was New York City area, and they toured the Midwest, which was Chicago area. He wanted them to come to Miami to bring their vaudeville shows here. And they said, "You don't even have a theater." And George said, "If I build one, and I'll have it made ready in 1 year, and you all can come." And they did. So he started this theater in 1928, and in 1929, a year later, it was finished, and they had their first vaudeville show after it opened in April of 1929. By the way, I didn't tell you what he found when he was drilling and didn't find water, and it wasn't oil. It was zinc. They found the largest zinc deposit in the world right outside of Miami, Oklahoma here. That's where he made his fortune. The theater operated here for many, many years, and in the late 1980s, the family had turned it over to the city of Miami because they didn't want it anymore, and it had been in disrepair for quite a few years. In the early 1990s, they started a restoration project. I was here in the early 90s when that first started, and this theater was in shambles. The water damage was enormous. The plaster was falling off. The seats were out. It was just a total gut job. And the man was here doing the restoration didn't really know how to do it. He learned on the job of how to do things. He taught high school kids how to do it. Local people helped. It was a great community effort. Am I right on that?
It was a total community effort. I mean, it really was. It was a team of volunteers who grew up here in this theater. All of their fond memories of their youth were spent here in this theater watching movies. And so it was only fitting that they be the ones to step forward and save it. And we're talking about volunteers on their hands and knees, scrubbing the floors, getting years of gum off the floor and gunk. They hauled 6 tons of trash out of this facility during the restoration process. And what you see today is the result of that love for this theater and the hard work and blood and sweat and tears that they put into saving this beautiful facility.
Well, it sure shows. Many years after the restoration started and the family has been gone from Miami for many years, another family came in and bought their old mansion. And one day they called the theater up and I said, "I think we have something in our barn out here that belongs to you." So the directors at that time, was that you?
I was Barbara Smith.
Okay. She went out to the barn, looked at what they had, and they had this beautiful chandelier in pieces out in their barn. So they got the original chandelier back and restored it to its beauty that it is now. Then they had to begin a search for an organ, and they started calling organ repair masters all around the country. They got a hold of a guy in Colorado one day that didn't have anything, and he led him to a guy in Texas. Said, "You need to call him." So they called him up and told him who they were, Miami with the theater, and the guy says, "I am sitting here right now looking at the original organ that came out of your theater." Man, what a surprise. So they negotiated with him. Tell that story.
Well, what's interesting about that is the search for an organ really wasn't about trying to find the original Wurlitzer pipe organ for this theater. An expert who specializes in historic theaters and restoration of historic theaters told them that they were making some great progress, but the one thing they needed to do was give the theater its voice back. And by that, he meant this theater was built for a pipe organ. And he said, you really need to get one back in here. And that's what started that search. A little bit of a different twist, though, is that it wasn't a guy in Colorado they called. It was a gentleman in Tulsa by the name of Phil Judkins is the one that they spoke with. And he's the one who led them to the gentleman in Texas who actually still had the original Wurlitzer pipe organ for the Coleman Theater. Something that everyone thought had been lost in time, didn't even know if it still existed, and they stumbled across it just trying to find another organ for this theater.
Oh, that's awesome. The guy obviously did not want to sell it. He bought it for himself. They negotiated back and forth, and he finally agreed, if you'll put it in your theater, I'll sell it back to you for just what I paid for it. He said, I'm going to go along with the deal, though, and he came up here and installed it and lived here for 6 months just getting the job done. So it's what a treasure to have. This whole place is a treasure for Oklahoma. It's worth a road trip someday.
And just a side note on that organ store, Jim Peterson, the man in Texas who had the organ, you know, one of the conditions was he had to be the one to come and install it. But this community owes a great deal of gratitude and debt to Mr. Jim Peterson for not only saving that Wurlitzer pipe organ, but restoring it. And today it's worth more now, and it sounds better than it even did when it was originally installed. And that's all because of the care and love that Mr. Peterson had for that piece of equipment.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, tell us just briefly about some of the events that you have here throughout the year.
Well, this is our busy time. So we've got a lot of things coming up. Let's talk about November 8th. We've got two gentlemen who are going to come here and put on a special show called Elvis and Johnny. They're doing a salute, a tribute to Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. We're very excited about that show, and so are the people in the area because we're selling quite a few tickets for that show. Then you jump forward, November 17th. We have the grandson of Conway Twitty and the granddaughter of Loretta Lynn are going to be here doing a tribute to their grandparents.
Oh, wow.
On November 17th. And then we get into December, and that's when things really take off here at the Coleman Theater. It's the holidays here at the Coleman. We kick things off with our great friends, Miami Little Theater is going to be putting on the play A Christmas Carol. That's the first weekend in December. Then you go to December 8th. Mr. Gene Watson, country legend Gene Watson, will be here in concert December 8th. Fast forward to December 14th. We're going to show the movie White Christmas. On the 15th, we're going to have a big band Christmas concert featuring the Tulsa Praise Orchestra. On the 16th, we're going to show, it's a tradition here, we do it every year, we're going to show the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And then you jump forward to December 22nd, which is the weekend before Christmas, and Grammy Award-winning artist Riders in the Sky will be here doing their Christmas show for the very first time here at the Coleman Theater. So we're very excited about that. We've got a lot of things going on in the holidays. Take a little bit of your time, stress-free environment, come down and just relax, have a great time in this wonderful historic facility.
It's definitely worth the trip. I want to show you one more thing now. This is probably the most famous painting of Will Rogers. This is the only painting of Will Rogers that you'll find in the Smithsonian, and it was painted by famous Western artist Charles Banks Wilson. Charles Banks Wilson is a native of Miami, Oklahoma, and when he was 15 years old, he used to work here in the theater, and he asked Will Rogers if he could sketch him, and he said yes. Later on, Will Rogers commissioned him to paint this picture for him. It's a gorgeous picture. Shannon, thank you very much for letting us come here today. I hope that people see the beauty of this theater and maybe you get some guests from it.
Well, that would be great. We love showing off our theater, so anytime you want to come on down, you're more than welcome.
All right. This is a beautiful place. I love it. We come here often. We've got another surprise in store for you here in a few minutes, and we're going to go there now. Here we are inside of V8 Shoppers, right outside of Miami, Oklahoma, and I'm talking with the owner today, Stan Hughes. And Stan is my new best friend. He said if I do this video, he's going to give me one of these gorgeous bikes here. So I said, what's your address? And I'm here. So, Stan, tell us a little bit about what you got going on here.
Well, V8 Choppers is just a creation that we came up with about 15 years ago. And I've just been really passionate about motorcycles my whole life. And first year I think we built 3, and then we just started adding on from there and adding on from there. And it's just been a 15-year career out of building motorcycles and dealing with motorcycle people and going to the rallies to do our shows and things like that.
And today you have bikes literally all over the United States and around the world.
I do.
How cool is
I
that?
do. It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. I'm very humbled, but it's a neat thing.
Well, you build gorgeous bikes, and these things, 600 horsepower, they'll run up to 150 plus miles an hour. Not that you want to go that fast, but they're gorgeous bikes, and they're very loud.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background before you got started in building bikes. What did you do before you were a bike builder?
Well, it'd be easier to tell you what I didn't do. I've never been a politician.
Okay.
No, I was. How far back do you want to go?
Let's talk about your career that follows
Starting
mine.
at the milk route.
No, starting about the home building.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Right before I got into building bikes, I was building homes, and I did spec homes, and then I did some custom homes for people. And my dad was a home builder, and I learned the skills from him. And so I've done the things like poured the concrete, framed the walls, and put the roofs on and did all the physical stuff. And then I learned how to be a general contractor and to build a home from other people's hands.
Well, that's very cool, and I think you probably learned a little bit about customer service in home building too, didn't you?
Yeah, what you don't see when you're building a house, the customer will show you.
Absolutely. And you got some of the same things to
Same
deal
thing.
with these clients.
Same thing with motorcycles. We've never built a perfect one yet. We try, but as hard as we try, it's the same with a home. Every home you start, when you first start, you don't make the same mistakes you did on the last one. You work your mistakes out of it, but you still never end up with a perfect product, ever. You just have to try.
That's true. And you also did development, right?
We did.
And you still live in that development?
I actually sold out about 4 years ago and moved back onto my property next to the development, but it's not in the development anymore.
Well, that's really interesting. We've got a guy here that just was in home building just like us, and decided to give that up and go into motorcycle building. So there's always something else if you ever decide to give up home building. Stan, I sure appreciate you letting us come in your shop today. You build gorgeous bikes,
Thank
and
you.
I just can't thank you enough for
You're sure
having
welcome.
us.
Which one of these do you want?
I'll take that one right there. Well, that's it for Miami, and look for us next month. I don't know where we'll be, but I'm sure it'll be someplace fun. So keep your eyes open for it.